Welcome to the deep dive.
And today, we're taking a deep dive into something absolutely critical. The mindset shifts that truly separate entrepreneurs who thrive and build something lasting from those who, well, get stuck, burn out, or maybe never even really get started.
Right.
Our mission here is to pull the most powerful, actionable ideas from the sources you've shared. Classic wisdom from Jim Rohn, those sharp insights from Angela Duckworth on grit, and the profound perspective of Eckhart Tolle on the power of now.
Exactly. We've got this incredible stack of material, really looking at different angles on what it actually takes to succeed, not just, survive in today's world.
Yeah.
And at the heart of everything we're digging into today is Jim Rohn's foundational belief that success isn't some guarded secret. It's a system.
A system.
A system built fundamentally on self-discipline, consistent growth, taking personal responsibility, and that relentless push for daily improvement. His famous line, work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
That quote, it's just a complete paradigm shift, isn't it? It immediately tells you the real battlefield isn't just out there with competitors or market conditions.
Right.
It's internal.
Oh, totally. It puts the locus of control squarely on you. And our goal for you as you listen to this deep dive is to walk away with some really concrete tools and specific takeaways. We want you to feel like you have a clearer path to transforming your mindset, which in turn can elevate everything, your business, your daily habits, and your confidence.
So where do we begin with tackling burnout and distraction through this particular lens? Ron would start right here with the mindset of winners.
Yes.
He believed the absolute fundamental difference between people who achieve extraordinary things and those who don't. It really comes down to how they think.
Winners just approach the world differently, don't they? They don't sit around waiting for perfect conditions to magically appear.
They're waiting.
They don't waste precious energy wishing things were different or, complaining about the economy or whatever. They identify what they want and they go after it.
They really do. They understand that success isn't handed to you. You have to create your own opportunities and actively shape your own destiny.
Yeah.
It's taken.
It's taken, yeah. And what does that mean when things inevitably go wrong? Because let's face it, they will.
Oh, absolutely. This is where the mindset truly shows up. Winners don't see obstacles as permanent roadblocks. They see them as temporary challenges.
Just temporary.
Failures aren't the end. They're just lessons, valuable data. Every single setback. It's basically an opportunity dressed up in disguise. They have actively trained themselves, over time to pivot their focus from problems to solutions.
Right. It's an active process, isn't it? Managing your internal world. They don't let fear be the CEO of their decisions.
No fear-based decisions.
Doubt doesn't get to control their actions. And they definitely don't waste time or mental energy complaining about things completely outside their control.
That's such wasted energy.
Totally. Instead, they double down on responsibility. They own their circumstances, the good and the bad, because they know that's the only way they can actually create the results they desire.
And you contrast that with what Ron observed in most people. They talk themselves out of things.
Yeah.
They limit their own potential just with their thinking, telling themselves all the reasons why they cannot succeed. They convince themselves that success is for other people, the lucky ones, the ones with connections or some special talent.
Right, the chosen few idea.
Exactly. They allow past failures, which are just data points really, to somehow define their entire future. And crucially, they let fear be the ultimate gatekeeper, holding them back from even trying in the first place.
So the real discipline isn't just showing up to work, it's disciplining your thinking.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Winners train their minds relentlessly. They condition themselves to believe that achieving the extraordinary is possible. They refuse to accept the limits others or even they themselves try to place on them. They actively challenge their own excuses and they push through discomfort on purpose. They lean into it.
And this is where the rubber meets the road, especially for the entrepreneur, right? Ron saw that winners don't wait for this mystical motivation or inspiration to just strike them.
No waiting for the muse.
They are trained to move, to take action, even when they absolutely do not feel like it. That ability, that muscle of disciplined action, regardless of mood, that's the separator.
Wow. So it's not about feeling good, it's about doing the work anyway. That really flips the script for a lot of people who are waiting to feel motivated before they start.
It really does. Most people are kind of slaves to their emotions. They only act when they feel like working, when they're inspired, when it feels easy.
Right.
Winners have developed the internal capability to move forward anyway, even when fear is present, even when doubt is whispering in their ear. They've conditioned themselves to operate from a place of inner power, regardless of the external chaos or internal feelings.
So mindset isn't just a nice to have.
Not at all. It's the absolute bedrock.
Okay. A key part of building that internal power, according to Rohn, is removing hesitation. Stop negotiating with yourself.
Well, that internal debate.
Exactly. That back and forth. Should I work on this today? Maybe I should wait. Is this the right decision? What if it's wrong? That internal chatter is an absolute killer.
Kills momentum.
It keeps people stuck, it kills momentum, and it just erodes confidence. Winners, he suggested, have trained themselves to dramatically reduce this hesitation and simply act without waiting for perfect certainty.
And how do you build that muscle? How do you get better at just acting?
By deliberately seeking discomfort. Winners understand that pushing through difficult tasks makes them stronger. Doing the things that scare them builds genuine confidence, far more than just staying in their comfort zone ever could. Facing resistance head-on, it conditions their mind to operate at a much higher level.
Which brings us to embracing failure. This is another point Ron was really adamant about.
Absolutely crucial. Winners fundamentally understand that success is built on a foundation of failure.
Right.
The faster you're willing to fail, the faster you learn, adapt, and ultimately win. They take calculated risks. They don't play it safe trying to avoid every possible mistake.
They also fiercely protect their mind, don't they?
Oh, fiercely. They control their internal dialogue and consciously choose how they respond to external events. They see their mindset as fundamentally more powerful than any external factor. Negativity, criticism, bad news, fear.
It's like an internal filter.
Exactly. They consciously train their mind to think powerfully and stay focused on solutions, not just get bogged down in problems.
And tied to that is protecting their focus. In today's world, oh man, with the constant pings and notifications, this is more relevant than ever.
Couldn't agree more. Winners understand that truly meaningful success requires laser focus. They see every distraction as a thief, stealing their time, energy, and potential.
They're ruthless about it.
They have to be. Ruthless about eliminating distractions and focusing intensely on what truly matters. It's about achieving depth. Mastering a few key areas rather than spreading yourself thin across everything.
And finally, Ron talked about not seeking approval. That's a big one.
Huge. Winners aren't living their lives trying to please everyone else or constantly worrying about what other people think. They've made the internal decision to pursue their vision regardless of external opinions.
That need for approval, it's such a trap.
It really is.
Yeah.
He suggested it's a major trap for most people.
Yeah.
It leads them to compromise who they are, follow expectations instead of their own path, and ultimately leads to, unfulfillment.
Yeah.
Winners are willing to stand alone, to be misunderstood, and to pursue their vision even if, maybe especially if, no one else believes in it initially. True success is often built quietly, when you stop letting outside noise dictate your direction.
That's an incredibly clear picture of the internal game, the mindset, the discipline, the focus. But, as powerful as that is, just having the right mindset isn't always enough to navigate the long, hard road of entrepreneurship.
Right, there's more to it.
You need sustained effort, resilience when things go wrong, the ability to just keep going. And this is where Angela Duckworth's work on grit comes in, and it aligns beautifully, I think.
It really does. Duckworth defines grit simply as passion and perseverance for long-term goals. She argues that in our culture, we often have this intense obsession with natural talent. And that actually distracts us from a far more important truth.
It's like that quote from Will Smith, right? That was in your source. Talent you have naturally, skills only developed by hours and hours and hours of beating on your craft.
Exactly. Skill isn't just naturally showing up with something. It's not achievement without effort. Effort takes that raw material of talent and forges it into skill.
And then makes it useful.
And then that same effort makes that skill productive in the real world. Yeah. The example of the pianist, Chia, from the book really nails this. Her incredible accomplishments weren't just because she was some kind of natural.
Yeah.
They were the result of practicing 4 to 6 hours every single day. And crucially, it wasn't because someone was forcing her. She said, it was me. It was what I wanted. It stemmed from her own internal drive, her desire to get better.
And that ties into continuous improvement, right? That idea of Kaizen.
Precisely. Greedy people aren't satisfied hitting a certain level and just stopping there. They resist what Duckworth calls the plateau of arrested development.
Arrested development, I like that.
They have this persistent, burning desire to do better with each attempt, each project. Think of an actor wanting every role to be better than the last, or a writer wanting every book to be a step up.
It's not just logging hours.
No, it's not just quantity. It's about the quality of that time-focused, deliberate practice, specifically targeting weaknesses, pushing yourself.
Okay, so the good news here is Duckworth says grit isn't fixed, right? You can actually grow it.
Absolutely. That's the hopeful message. It's mutable, it's growable.
Yeah.
You absolutely can develop more grit.
And how do you do that? What are the ways?
Well, she talks about two main paths, from the inside out and from the outside in. Inside out is about cultivating your own interest in something, really finding what fascinates you.
Okay.
Building the habit of daily practice where you challenge yourself just beyond your current skill level, connecting your work to a deeper purpose, a why, and learning to cultivate hope. That optimism will get to.
And outside in?
And outside in depends critically on the people around you, the support, the challenge, the modeling you get from parents, coaches, teachers, bosses, mentors, friends. Your environment plays a huge role in fostering grit.
Gotcha. Duckworth identified 4 psychological assets she found common in highly gritty people. What are those?
Okay, first is interest. Passion truly begins with finding something you intrinsically enjoy doing. Gritty people aren't just going through the motions. They're captivated by the endeavor itself, and they find it deeply meaningful.
Finding that internal hook.
Exactly. Finding that match between what you do and what truly captures your attention is a huge predictor of both happiness and success. She notes that early interests are often fragile, though. They need to be nurtured. And before the hard, deliberate work often comes play initially, novices are just having fun exploring.
Right, it doesn't start out as a grind.
Second is practice. This is where Ron's discipline really connects. It's the daily commitment to trying to do things better than you did yesterday.
Daily improvement.
Once you've found that interest, you have to commit yourself to focused, full-hearted practice, deliberately pushing past your current limits. It's about zeroing in on your weaknesses, the parts you're not good at yet, and working on them over and over for hours. The internal refrain is basically, whatever it takes, I want to improve.
Okay, third asset.
Third is purpose. This is about connecting your work to the intention to contribute to the well-being of others. Purpose, Duckworth argues, ripens passion.
Ripens passion. Interesting.
Yeah. Passions that endure often depend on both personal interest and a sense of larger purpose. The study of firefighters was fascinating. It showed that while they're driven by a strong desire to help others, those pro-social motives that only translated into extraordinary effort when they also enjoy the job itself.
So you need both.
You really need both. The Summer Bridge program example, helping disadvantaged kids, that was born from a compelling urgency and purpose that gave its founders courage and energy they didn't even know they had.
Wow. Okay, and the fourth psychological asset.
And fourth is hope. Now, this isn't passive wishful thinking. It's learning a form of active optimism. It's really about how you explain setbacks to yourself.
How you frame things.
Exactly. Gritty people tend to see challenges as temporary and specific to the situation, rather than permanent and pervasive across their whole life. Teachers who are more optimistic were actually grittier, happier, and their students achieved more.
That makes sense.
The core idea is, when you actively keep searching for ways to change your situation, you dramatically increase your chances of actually finding them. It really echoes that classic Henry Ford quote, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right."
That connection between hope and mindset is so critical, and Duckworth links it directly to Carol Dweck's really important work on the growth mindset.
Yes, absolutely. The belief that your fundamental abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work goes hand in hand with grit. Students with a growth mindset are measurably grittier, they get higher grades, and they're more likely to persist in challenging environments like college.
And mindsets aren't just born, they're shaped, right, by our experiences.
Totally shaped. They come from our personal history, and crucially, how people around us, especially authority figures like parents and teachers, responded to our successes and failures. This is why the language we use with ourselves and with others matters so much.
So praise effort, not just talent.
Exactly. Praising effort and the learning process over simply praising natural talent is key. The examples from the KPP schools in the source are fantastic.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, "You're a natural," try, "I love that you're a learner."
I like that.
Instead of, "At least you tried," say, "Okay, that didn't work. Let's talk about how you approached it and what we could try differently." Instead of, "This is hard. Don't feel bad if you can't do it." Add one powerful word, yet.
Yet. That changes everything.
It really does.
And modeling that growth mindset yourself is even more powerful than just using the right words, I imagine.
Oh, much more.
Yeah.
As the saying goes, children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them. If parents react to mistakes as if they are terrible failures rather than learning opportunities, they can inadvertently foster a fixed mindset. Corporate leaders see this too. The ones who sustain success over the long haul are the ones who stay on a growth trajectory, who believe they can always learn more, rather than deciding, I am what I am, which basically signals complacency.
Duckworth also points to practicing grit through things like extracurricular activities.
Yeah, definitely. Bill Gates famously looked for programmers who had finished projects they started. Activities like sports, arts, hobbies, or part-time jobs in high school, especially those with multi-year commitments and evidence of progress, she calls it the grit grid idea, are powerful indicators.
They sure follow through.
Exactly, follow through. These activities aren't just about building skills. They teach valuable transferable lessons about discipline, character development, learning from others, and figuring out what you truly care about. Sometimes activities suggested by others can become absolutely transformative for students.
And learning from failure, which Ron highlighted too, is just central to grit.
It's completely central. Think about babies and toddlers learning to walk. They fall down constantly, but they don't seem to mind the mistakes. Just get back up.
Yeah, no shame there.
No shame at all. Something happens around kindergarten where grown-ups' reactions, the frowns, flushed faces, sharp words, start teaching embarrassment, fear, and shame around making mistakes. And shame, unfortunately, is not helpful for fixing anything.
No, it just paralyzes you.
Right. Teachers who can model emotion-free mistake-making, who embrace failures as just part of the process. Okay, that was hard, but it was great that we tried it. They're incredibly powerful. The writer Ta-Nehisi Coates is quoted describing writing as just failure over and over and over again.
Wow.
The challenge is seeing the horribleness of early drafts or early attempts at anything and having the grit to refine it repeatedly. MacArthur Fellows, Nobel laureates, Olympic champions, none of them got there any other way.
So the final point from Duckworth that really resonates with Ron is that limits are often self-imposed.
So often. We try something, we fail, maybe once or twice, and we prematurely conclude we've hit our ceiling, or we just change direction too soon, looking for something easier. To be gritty, she writes, is to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Hold fast to an interesting and purposeful goal. Invest day after week after year in challenging practice. Fall down 7 times and rise 8.
Fall down 7 times, rise 8. Okay, so we've got Ron's proactive discipline mindset focused on internal responsibility and action. We've got Duckworth's grit, the passion and perseverance for sustained effort, learning from setbacks, continuous improvement. But what about managing that internal noise Ron talked about?
Yeah, the internal chatter.
The fear, the doubt, the overwhelm, the endless distractions in our heads that can kill momentum and just erode grit. How do you stay disciplined and focused when your own mind feels like it's working against you?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And this is where Eckhart Tolle's teachings and the power of now offer a crucial third dimension, I think, a way to manage that internal landscape.
Absolutely. Tolle dives deep into what he calls the problem of the mind, specifically compulsive thinking. He suggests that for almost everyone, our minds are constantly churning out thoughts, many of which are not only repetitive and useless, but actively harmful.
An addiction, he calls it.
He describes it as an addiction because you feel like you can't stop.
Yeah.
And critically, you derive your entire sense of self, your ego, from this incessant mental activity. This identification with the mind, he argues, creates an opaque screen, an illusion of separateness, blocking true connection and a deeper awareness.
And this compulsive thinking, especially about the past and future, he says that's the root cause of most human suffering.
That's his core argument. He calls this psychological time, dwelling too much in what has been or what might be, and actively denying the only reality you ever truly have, which is the present moment, right now.
So all that anxiety and worry.
Unease, anxiety, stress, worry, fear. Too much future, not enough presence. Guilt, regret, resentment, bitterness. Too much past, not enough presence.
Wow, that simplifies things.
He argues that most of the problems we identify in our lives are actually ego-created, generated by the mind's relentless attachment to past and future and its denial of the present. He makes a really striking point. Even if you could wave a magic wand and remove all your current problems, if you didn't become more present, your mind would simply create similar ones down the line.
Because the underlying mechanism hasn't changed.
Exactly. The core teaching, as you mentioned, is incredibly simple in concept, but profoundly challenging in practice.
Yeah,
The present moment is literally all you ever have.
that's it.
The past is just memory traces, the future is imagination. Make the NW your primary focus, your dwelling place. Visit the past or future only when absolutely necessary for practical planning or learning, and then return immediately to the present.
And this leads to the concept of surrender to what is, which
No.
doesn't sound easy.
It doesn't sound easy, and it's often misunderstood. This isn't passive resignation or giving up. It's active acceptance of the present moment, unconditionally and without reservation. It's yielding to the flow of life as it is unfolding right now in this instant.
Instead of fighting it.
Exactly. Resistance, the mind constantly saying no through judgment, labeling, negativity, wanting things to be different, that creates internal conflict and suffering. Acceptance, or surrender as he calls it, immediately starts to free you from that relentless mind identification and reconnects you with a deeper sense of being, of okayness.
So resistance is weakness.
Tolle suggests resistance is actually weakness and fear pretending to be strength, while surrender is a kind of vulnerability that paradoxically reveals your true underlying invulnerability.
Interesting. So accessing the power of now is accessing that state of presence, that consciousness, that isn't completely hijacked by your thought.
Precisely. And he talks about dissolving past pain, what he calls the pain body. This is the accumulated emotional pain from your past unresolved grief, trauma, resentment that lives on as a residue in your mind and body, forming this negative energy field.
How do you dissolve that?
You don't fight it. Fighting gives it energy. You become the watcher. You observe this energy field. You feel the emotion directly in your body without labeling it, judging it, or getting lost in the story the mind creates around it.
Just observe.
Just observe. Consciousness itself, simply being present with the sensation non-judgmentally, transmutes it. As long as you are present enough to simply watch and feel its energy without letting it take over your thinking, it cannot control you.
Observing the mind is the active practice here then.
That's the key practice. Watch the thought process itself. Feel the emotion that arises. Observe your reactions. But crucially, don't judge it, don't analyze it, don't get caught up in the story of it all. This non-judgmental observation is how presence dissolves the grip of the past. You can't find your true self by digging endlessly into your past. You find yourself by becoming fully present now.
Okay, is there a practical way to do that, to get present?
Yes, a very powerful, practical way Tolle suggests to reclaim consciousness from the incessant thinking mind is to consciously shift your attention. Take your focus away from the thoughts swirling in your head and direct it into your body.
Into the body.
Feel the subtle energy field within you, the aliveness inside your hands, your arms, your legs, your torso. Experience it as a single, unified field of energy. Focus on that pure feeling, that sense of inner presence, not on mental images of your body.
Living with presence then means staying rooted in that internal sense while you're doing things.
Exactly. Feel that inner body while you're working, while you're talking to someone, while you're facing a challenge. This adds a profound depth to what you do and changes the very quality of your experience. When you're rooted within, you aren't easily shaken by external upsets or the internal chatter.
Otherwise, the mind runs the show.
Otherwise, the conditioned mind, with all its fears and patterns, just runs the show. An intense presence is especially needed, he says, in emotionally charged or challenging situations.
Tolle also talks about forgiveness in this context, right?
Yeah. Yes, he does. Relinquishing grievances and letting go of grief. It's not something you necessarily do by force of will, so much as something that happens more naturally when you realize that holding on to the past, holding on to resentment, serves absolutely no purpose except to reinforce that false sense of self, the ego.
So forgiveness is non-resistance.
Forgiveness is essentially offering no resistance to life as it is unfolded. Non-forgiveness is seen as the nature of the thinking mind, which kind of thrives on past injustices and stories of victimhood.
And finally, this cultivation of presence is the key to ending drama.
That's the idea. The ego is the unobserved mind, constantly perceiving itself as separate, deficient, and threatened. So it creates all these patterns: resistance, control, grasping, defending, attacking, all trying to combat this underlying sense of fear and lack.
And when egos meet,
When unobserved egos interact, drama is the almost inevitable result. Conflict, relational problems, stress, sometimes even violence. When you are no longer identified with and run by your reactive mind, you simply cease to generate that drama in your life. You step out of it.
Okay, so let's try and bring these three powerful perspectives together now. How do these ideas from Rohn, Duckworth, and Tolle offer a kind of comprehensive approach for the modern entrepreneur, especially one battling burnout and distraction?
Well, you can really see how they interlock, can't you? Rohn's fundamental call to action, to self-discipline, to that relentless pursuit of your goals that absolutely requires the fuel of Duckworth's grit.
You need the staying power.
You need the staying power. You need that sustained effort, the willingness to learn from setbacks, and the commitment to continuous improvement over the long haul, not just, flashes of motivation.
But then Tolle's insights on present moment awareness and learning to disidentify from that incessant, often fearful or distracting voice in your head, that provides the crucial internal management system, doesn't it?
It really does. This is how you effectively handle the fear Rohn warns against, the doubt, the constant internal noise, the pull of distractions, that hesitation that kills action. Presence allows you to observe these things without being consumed by them.
Freeing up energy.
Exactly. Freeing up energy for grit and disciplined action.
Absolutely. And Duckworth's growth mindset, that belief that your abilities can be developed, that directly fuels Rohn's perspective that anything is possible and that you have the power to challenge your own excuses.
And purpose, which is a key component of grit, aligns perfectly with Rohn's idea of consciously shaping your destiny. It provides the deeper why that sustains the passion required for grit.
Which helps fight distraction.
Right. Helping you overcome the temptations of distraction and procrastination that Tolle highlights as the mind pulling you away from what matters now.
And a deliberate practice, that focused work essential for grit, requires precisely the kind of focused attention and elimination of internal hesitation that Rohn describes.
And that level of focus is powerfully enabled by being grounded in the present moment, as Tolle teaches, guarding against the mind constantly pulling you into worries about the future or regrets about the past.
And finally, learning from failure, something both Rohn and Duckworth hammer home as essential. That's only truly possible if you can experience a setback without getting completely lost in the emotional storm, right?
Exactly. Without getting lost in the self-judgment or the negative stories your mind immediately creates about it. Tolle's practice of observing the mind and the pain body without judgment allows you to actually process failure as data, as valuable learning.
Instead of letting it define you.
Right. Rather than letting it define you or completely derail your forward momentum.
So ultimately, thriving as an entrepreneur, especially today, isn't just about pushing harder or having more discipline externally, though those are definitely critical.
They are necessary, but not sufficient.
It's also fundamentally about cultivating the right inner state, that foundation of presence from Tolle that allows you to engage that discipline and grit from a place of clarity, resilience, and purposeful action, rather than just being tossed around by internal noise and external challenges.
It's really about building that inner strength so you can bring your best, most focused self to the external work that needs doing.
So just to recap the core ideas we've explored today, success in entrepreneurship really starts with cultivating a proactive, disciplined mindset focused relentlessly on internal growth and taking responsibility, just as Jim Rohn powerfully taught.
That's the starting point.
This is built on the bedrock of sustained, passionate effort and continuously learning from every setback, which is the essence of Angela Duckworth's grit.
The engine, if you will.
And critically, both that disciplined action and that sustained effort are anchored and made possible by cultivating present moment awareness. This allows you to navigate the fear, the doubt, and the endless distractions of the mind, as Eckhart Tolle so clearly illuminates in The Power of Now.
These aren't just, abstract philosophies floating around. They are incredibly actionable principles for building the life and the business you truly want, for combating that pervasive feeling of burnout, and for cutting through the constant noise and distraction that plague modern life. They are really about managing your internal world so you can effectively engage with the external one.
Okay, so here's a provocative thought for you listening to consider as you reflect on your own entrepreneurial journey. Looking at these three pillars we've discussed, your proactive mindset, Rohn, your sustained grit, Duckworth, and your ability to stay present, Tolle, which area feels like your greatest natural strength right now?
Where do you feel solid?
And perhaps more importantly, which area presents your biggest, most exciting opportunity for growth? Where could a little focus make the biggest difference?
Think about that. Where could focusing just a little more attention create the biggest shift for you right now? And with that in mind, what's just one small, disciplined step, grounded in presence, fueled by purpose, and backed by the belief that you can improve, that you can take today?
Thanks for tuning in to the Deep Dive. We hope this exploration gives you some powerful ideas and maybe that one small step to apply to your own path.